So how do you stay motivated to keep posting videos on YouTube when you have a full-time job or you're going to school full-time? In this video, I share 3 quick tips coming up. Hey, what's up? Sean here with Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And on this channel, we do a lot of tech gear reviews as well as Q&A videos just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. HamTube asks, make a video on how to stay motivated as a YouTuber when you still have a full-time job. Thanks so much for the question, HamTube. Let's go. So I love this question because there's no doubt about it that YouTube is fun. It's a place to be creative. It's a place that you can build your income around your passion. And there's so many great things about it, but also it's a lot of hard work. If you've been posting videos on YouTube for very long, you know that it is kind of a grind. There's work to put into it. There's thumbnails to make, titles to do, descriptions to write, content to come up with. There's so much that goes into it, and it can get very stressful, overwhelming, and even exhausting to try to do YouTube while you've got family and work and school and all these competing things. And so how do you keep that fire, that passion, and that motivation alive? Here are my 3 biggest tips. Number 1 is start with why. Now, I kind of based that on a book called Start With Why and a famous TED Talk that just kind of talked about, instead of worrying about what you're doing, YouTube, or how you're doing it, the style of your videos, what you're posting online, remember why you're doing it. And specifically come up with compelling reasons that motivate you to do YouTube that are maybe deeper than what you would normally think about. And so if you just want to make YouTube to have a little bit of fun, well, that might wear out pretty quick. Or if you want to do YouTube so that you can buy some cool stuff with the money you make, again, I don't know if that's a deep enough motivation. Maybe it is for some people, but if you can find very compelling reasons, I found that the most successful people that do side hustles and do really well at their side hustle is because they have tapped into a deep, compelling reason. So for example, if you've never heard of my personal story and my family's journey, I actually met my wife Sonia in 2005, and in 2007, she got really sick. She got a chronic illness, and that flipped our life upside down. And so it was in that season, though, that I tapped into a new dimension of motivation, of purpose, of having really something to fight for. And it was kind of like this light bulb turned on and said, man, I really got to be a leader. I really got to be a provider. I really got to be finding ways to be creative, be entrepreneurial so that I can, provide for my family, generate income. And that was really that fuel and that fire and that motivation that led me to be looking for how to generate income online. Additionally, I also saw the window of opportunity that was happening online at that time and really still is with YouTube, with social media. When I started to hear about examples of people who were making a full-time living doing what they love, people who turned their creativity into a career, their passion into profit, I thought, man, that opportunity is amazing. And I asked myself, what price would I be willing to pay, no matter how hard I had to work, no matter how much of a side hustle I had to do while I had a full-time job, to be able to generate and create that life. And it was enough motivation for me. And there's multiple things that I would say are compelling reasons for me for doing it. But what are your compelling reasons? And when you re-tap into those, when I thought about my family, when I thought about legacy, when I thought about opportunity, and it was, 10:30 at night and I had been working all week and now I'm just getting to editing videos, that was motivation for me. I would re-tap into those compelling reasons. So tap into your compelling reasons for why you want to do YouTube. And again, they don't have to be super dramatic, but find things that are motivating, that are energizing, that'll keep you motivated when you get exhausted, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, after a long day at work, or after, being at school, studying for weeks on end. And I would love to hear from you in the comments section. What is one of your reasons for wanting to build your influence on YouTube? Let me know. Tip number 2 is being more strategic in really every area of your life. And so here's 5 quick examples. The first one is being more strategic with your energy and your health. When you don't have a ton of extra time, and when you're trying to do YouTube as a side hustle, think about like, man, instead of going out and staying out with friends or something on a Friday night, get the sleep necessary so that you can wake up early on Sunday and work on your side hustle. It's not like everybody has to do that, but if you really want to build that side hustle, think about managing your energy better and your health so that you can do that when you've got the extra time. Another area is time management itself. You know that you probably need to sleep 8 hours. Maybe you're sleeping less with all of life's demands. And then you've got 8 hours at work, and that just leaves 8 hours. It's that extra 8 hours that you have to be very intentional and strategic with. Of course, you gotta do the work. You have to sleep eventually for everybody. But what are you doing with that extra 8? And how can you block some of that time to consistently be posting videos, editing, and doing the YouTube tasks that you need to do? Thirdly is be more strategic with your priorities and maybe realize that you can't prioritize some things during this season. And so if you got full-time work and a lot of other demands, you maybe only can have a few extra things that are on your calendar, but if you really want YouTube to be a thing, prioritize it. What gets prioritized gets done. What gets planned and scheduled gets done. And then 4, as far as strategic, is actually be more strategic with your YouTube content. I feel like if you're trying to do YouTube as a side hustle, but you're comparing yourself to somebody who does it full time, that'll mess you up really quick because you might be like, man, they're posting so much and they're doing this kind of content and that kind of content. For example, maybe you can only post 2 videos a month. And if that's the case, then make those 2 videos as strategic as possible so they can have the greatest reach, the greatest impact, the most evergreen content as possible. That was one of the things I focused on, was I wasn't able to imitate people who were posting, 5 days a week and people who had a team. When I was really bootstrapping in YouTube, I would just try to make one video that would say rank in search and get views when I wasn't working. That would grow my channel on autopilot. So I tried to put out the most strategic YouTube content as possible. And then lastly, number 5, be strategic with your sacrifices. And this is kind of like priorities, but what I mean here is there is really no success without sacrifice, especially when you're in that side hustle season. And what I mean is just something's got to give. Like, get rid of certain things that you might not be able to do for a while. Like, your friends might have just crushed, all seasons of Game of Thrones all in a row. But if you want to do YouTube when you're really busy, you might not be able to do that. Just make the decisions and sacrifices necessary to prioritize your side hustle. And I think that this quote from Dave Ramsey kind of sums this up perfectly when he said, "Live today like no one else so that later in life you can live like no one else." And if you keep that quote front and center, I think you can stay motivated really through anything. When I think about the grind of waiting tables at Red Robin for days on end, and then interning at my church and working even more, and then trying to do YouTube on top of that while just getting married and having a family and having all this other stuff, it was because I had a vision and I had a focus on the future to say, I can live and go through this challenging season and pay the price now and make sacrifices now if it'll change the rest of my life. And I hope that this is an encouragement to you that I'm an example of it did. Like, I put in the work, I worked really hard in those seasons, and now we've got momentum. Now I'm able to do YouTube full time, and I don't have to grind on a side hustle. I can grind full time doing the thing that I love. If you have that as like the North Star, it'll definitely keep you motivated. And then tip number 3 is grace and patience. I talked about hustling and I've talked about sacrifice, but one thing that you absolutely have to make sure that you have when you're in the side hustle season is you have to have grace for yourself and you have to be patient on the journey. Something's got to give. And the last thing that you want to do is hold yourself to a standard like, I'm going to upload every single week. And if you miss a week, guilt comes in and you feel like you're a failure and you feel like you've messed up. Don't let that happen. Like, you're doing more than everybody else. Like, your neighbors and the person across the street from you and the person in the apartment next to you, they're probably not doing a side hustle. They're probably getting off work and not working on anything. So the fact you're even grinding, the fact you're even editing videos and creating thumbnails and trying to post content is amazing. Really just take ownership of the grind, but also be patient with yourself. When I had a full-time job, YouTube was seasonal. So I'd like to say that I was consistent over those years, but sometimes it was a little slower at work. So I was able to put out a lot more videos. And then sometimes I didn't put out any at all. And if you're in the side hustle season, you gotta be okay with that. And so in the question that we started out this video with, it was, hey, how can I actually be putting out more content? And I believe that with strategy and with hustle, you can put out probably more content than you're putting out. But again, never compare yourself to what somebody else is doing and think about like how much content they're putting out. For instance, one of the people I look up to is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's putting out content everywhere. I mean, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, videos. But did you know that he has 15 full-time people working on his personal brand? I mean, if you compare yourself to somebody like that, or somebody who's doing YouTube full-time, you're gonna get discouraged really, really quick because they're in an entirely different season than where you're at. So really embrace the season that you're in, have grace for yourself, and be patient. And actually, a bonus tip is don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is one of the quickest ways to kill your motivation and lose all of your joy. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. The only person you should be competing with and comparing yourself to is yourself yesterday. Always just try to level up your craft, keep grinding, keep putting in the work, be strategic, but then also be patient and gracious with yourself on the journey. And those are some of the best ways that I've learned to stay motivated. Question of the day, what are your biggest tips and things that keep you motivated to keep posting videos on YouTube? And also, let me know one of your compelling reasons for why you started YouTube in the first place in the comments section. So thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and for some additional tips on staying motivated and staying inspired as you're creating YouTube content, you can check out this playlist right here. For another Think Media video, you can click or tap right there. Until next time, Think Media is bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. Keep crushing it, and we will talk soon.